stacking surfer. I think I'm your best friend. Balances in your bank instead. Andy, welcome to the stream today. Glad to have you back.
It is good to be back, my man. Could you knock it off? I swear they wait for you to hit live and then they knock it off. They want to say something. It's good to be here, man. Crazy world we live in, but glad to be chatting about things with you. And thanks for having me again.
I agree. I'm looking forward to this chat today. There's so much that's going on right now that we can cover off just that has happened today, and a handful of things that we're expecting to happen in October. And it's funny because every once in a while I'll get comments from people that are kind of looking at the old way of things, which is, hey, everything's going back down to $17 or $1,700, and this is just a little blip. And the reality is things are shifting. We're starting to see basically a commodity super cycle start. We're starting to see new bull runs, cup and handles, all these different things that are happening. And on top of that, there's all of the factors that could be influencing the price of metals, as well as their momentum.
For me, I try to make it as simple as possible. And, there's 6 major mints. The United States mint with the eagle, the Canadian mint with the maple, the Australian mint with the kangaroo or koala, depending upon what you're buying. They have other animals too, but let's just say the kangaroo. The South African mint with the Krugerrand, the UK mint, British mint with the Britannia, and of course the Austrian mint with the Philharmonic. Those are synonymous with quality, but I don't know. There's just been this overwhelming desire that I have had for largely since the states started ratifying these laws of legal tender application. That has driven me to purchase American coins. There's a law that says states can't produce their own currency unless it's gold and silver. And so all of these states, 11 of them with up to 25 or so that have it in front of their legislatures, have passed legal tender laws. So there's a man named Jim Sinclair, and I don't know if I've told this story to your listeners or not, but he says, "Do you wonder why I always buy American coins?" I said, "Well, actually, I kind of did wonder because the premiums, when you've been buying them lately, this was a couple of years ago, were quite expensive. There were less expensive ways to accumulate it." But he said, "I'm related to the Goldmans and Goldman Sachs. And I was told by a relative of mine that there will be 2 resets. And honestly, I would argue, this is me talking here now, that we are in the midst of the first reset right now." And he said that first reset would be man-made and it would fail. And the second reset would be that of Mother Nature. And when Mother Nature had her vengeance and reset the system, the American government would confiscate everything that wasn't American made in origin. And he insinuated that he was told this from a family member of his, the Goldmans and Goldman Sachs. True? Don't know. He believed it? Absolutely. Now, I still own coins that are not American made, although the majority of what I buy is American made. Do I put stock in it? I don't know. It makes me think a little bit. But I typically tell people, look, you can buy from any of these 6 mints. But when you own gold and silver, one of the reasons to own it is for immediate liquidity. No screwing around. I don't want to haggle with anyone. What's it worth? And if you look at the laws on some of these states, some of them say any coin issued by a sovereign mint, gold or silver, past or present, would be considered as legal tender that could be used for all debts, public and private, albeit you can't make a shopkeeper take it. If that shopkeeper is open to taking it, sure, you can do it. And it would be the melt value of the coin plus any perceived market value, not the face value, where an American Eagle is a $50 coin, as an example, or the Silver Eagle, a $1 coin. That's irrelevant. It's the melt value plus market premium, or even as much as paying your property taxes. But some of them, like Oklahoma, and I think Texas, say American-made coin. In terms of what I'm seeing, the volume of transactions is down. The size of the orders is exponentially higher. And I'm dead serious on this. We used to, back in the day, get 1 7-figure order a quarter, if that. Now they come in several a week. And I think that you have people who have, for a long time, given up control of their money to an advisor. They go to their financial advisor and say, look, I'm scared, man. I don't like what I see. This just doesn't seem right. Oh, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. The recency bias, the normalcy bias, that is very, very thick, especially at the end of a long macro trend cycle. This has been a long cycle. And a lot of people who are very well read read the wrong stuff. And I think you have a lot of very wealthy people, especially older folks, that are getting to the point where they just take it matters into their own hands and say, you know what? In their heart, they're feeling, I am more prepared or inclined to understand what is coming than you are. You're not aligned with the way that I see the world. And I'm going to take matters into my own hands and direct my own money. So inflation 100% is an inflating of the money supply. It's an increase in the money supply. So a 7% inflation rate or money creation, and the Cantillon effect says it takes time for the money to work its way through the system because it benefits the people closest to it, the hedge funds who can borrow at next to nothing and buy assets and jack up their asset price and jack up their bonuses. The wealthy people who buy assets who are able to get to it before it trickles down to the system in the form of higher prices. But if we just take it at what it is, a 7% money creation on average over 10 years would mean that the price of gold or the price of the dollar has, or the value of the dollar has been cut in half over the last 10 years. That's mathematical law, if indeed it's at 7%, like this economist told me. Okay, fine. Well, what was gold 10 years ago? $1,200. And here we are today at almost 27. So did gold go way up over the last 10 years or did the dollar go way down? And it's that gold has just been sitting there and the dollar has been going down and down and down and down in purchasing power. The bigger money is always ahead of the crowd. And it's like the little man rule, where the little man never really succeeds because he or she follows the masses and the crowd. And the bigger money, who is more inclined to be in tune to what's happening, they are ahead of the crowd. Now, you could go a step further and say the central banks, who are the biggest money and the most informed money, well, they're buying gold hand over fist and it's not stopping. This is why so few people really ever succeed in investing, because they follow the crowd. And that's the whole premise behind Elliott wave and Kondratiev wave theory, which is largely due to or related to human emotions. This time it's different. It's different on many levels. And every time people say that, it's usually bullshit, but this isn't. Because number one, you have a draining of the exchanges. No one ever stood for delivery before. In the month of August, 8.1% of all of the silver available for delivery in London was delivered. 8% in 1 month was taken off of the exchange. And you're seeing massive deliveries where these countries are standing for delivery, and they understand because they are motivated, coordinated, sophisticated, wealthy, and they understand that they can stand for delivery. The London Metals Exchange, LBMA, is 140 years old, and the majority of its entire life, all of these countries in the global south were third world, under sophisticated, certainly not motivated or coordinated. Think the BRICS, where there's coordination here, and all the countries applying to it understand. Think the new unit currency. All of these countries understand, and so they're coordinated, motivated, sophisticated, and saying the West are a bunch of idiots suppressing the price of gold and silver. Let's stand for delivery. Something that I just read in the Washington Post, and it's also been picked up in Politico. But I want you to think about this. We're 40 days away from an election, right? Maybe the biggest in this country's history. And what is Congress doing? Well, they're working on rolling out something called the 28th Amendment. There's only been 27 amendments in a few hundred years. Now we're trying to get 28, and it's called the Continuity Amendment. Are you familiar with this, by the way?
I'm not. Please share it.
Okay. This would allow for the immediate replacement of 100 or more members of Congress, get this, in the event of a mass casualty without holding an election or involving voter participation. Would require each member of the House to submit the names of at least 5 individuals from his or her political party to the state governor. In the event of mass casualty, the governor would choose of each state the name of within the list within 10 days. One name from within the list within 10 days, and the House Speaker would be required to seat them immediately. Now, when we talk about bizarro world, I mean, that's about as bizarre as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. 40 days before election, and this is what they're worried about, a mass casualty event. I don't know.
Yeah.
All of this stuff
What are
just
they
makes
thinking?
you wonder what the hell's going on.
I
Anyway,
agree. I
I
saw that the
digress.
other day, and that was concerning me. You don't put something forward like this if you don't think there's something to be risked around that. So a couple quick reminders here, real quick. If you haven't done so, hit the thumbs up. We'll do another gold back giveaway today if you guys can get up to the 100 thumbs up. We got over 100 people watching. It shouldn't be hard to do that. And then if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. That way you don't miss any of the notifications when we're going live. What's the probability of us seeing a unit currency being announced at the BRICS meeting this month? That's the first one. The second one is, what could the effect be on the longshoremen strike right now on the ports? And then the third one is, what effect are we seeing today based on the escalation in the Israeli war?
Well, those are all tough questions. I mean, the escalation of the Israeli war is a challenging one, especially when you have so much in the way of United States naval and military troops and ships and personnel all over the place in that area. If you look at a map of all of the naval presence in the Red Sea and the Straits of Hormuz and in that area, it's crazy. And if they attack the U.S., I mean, do we get dragged into a broader conflict? Iran is part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. What does that mean? I'm not quite sure, but they are the largest regional military organization in the world. Of course, they are a full member of BRICS as well. What does it mean? Who's on their side? Not quite sure, but it's not a good thing. As far as the shipping, this is an interesting one. This to me is a lot worse than what we saw during COVID. I mean, on one hand, you already have freight rates rising because of Houthi and the blowfish blowing everything up in the Red Sea.
Yep.
But it's worse because during COVID, that was a demand side shock where people were flush with cash from stimulus checks, weren't leaving the house, weren't going to malls. They were buying stuff and having it shipped. But the difference is this is a supply side shock due to a lack of capacity, where you don't have the economy roaring and everyone buying things. Money was into the economy. Here, it's the opposite of that. It's not about stimulus that's driving the economy and the log jam at the ports. It's the opposite of that. It's just there's a log jam at the ports, and it's way worse for the economy. A supply side shock versus a demand side shock. Dilma Rousseff, her admission, the former president of Brazil, the now director of the BRICS New Development Bank, said that she had 2 meetings on the sideline with Putin and Sergei Glaziev. Sergei is the reason I have been saying that there will be a commodity-backed currency for the BRICS for almost 4 years publicly. Dilma came out and said a couple things. We're not going to do a BRICS currency at this point, but a BRICS settlement currency, which is vastly different. And it will be pegged to 40% gold, not commodities, gold, which is what? The only other tier 1 reserve asset as defined by the BIS, and a basket of 60% BRICS plus currencies with not more than 30% of any one currency dominating the basket. Okay, fine. We agree upon it in principle, said Dilma Rousseff. It's a massive deal. It really is a massive deal, and it's really a perfect solution because, first of all, they said it would trade over Project Mbridge. Mbridge, as we've talked about, is the cross-border payment system that allows these countries to trade with one another outside of SWIFT interference. But the key to understanding Mbridge is that its primary use is to trade CBDCs. Each country will have their own CBDC, meaning they'll have their own little ecosystem, their own economy, their own monetary economy that they need to take care of, both fiscally and monetarily. They need to take care of it. Forget about the dollar for a moment. They need to make sure that their house is in order within their own economy, right? And they will trade with one another over Mbridge, which cannot be interfered with dollars because the dollars are not compatible on Mbridge. And Mbridge, of course, was designed by China, Hong Kong, Thailand, United Arab Emirates. Those 4 countries, there's about 25 observational countries. And guess who just signed up as a full participant? Number 5, Saudi Arabia is a full participant in Mbridge. Now you have a pivoting Fed, you have inflows coming into the ETFs for the first time in 2 years, and interest rates that are moving in the other direction, which will weaken the dollar. What matters is the fact that they're all preparing for it to happen. And whether Trump wins or not, he's not prepared to fight this battle either. He wants to sanction more countries for doing this. And he wants low interest rates and a weak dollar. This is the reason we got in this place to begin with. I don't know, dude. I think that they'll probably talk about it. Maybe they ratify it. But if they do, buckle up because it will That's that all at once moment, or precipitating that all at once moment where some people call it Operation Sandman or the night of the switch, where they all say, screw it, I'm out, and dump.
Will there be balloon payments on us homeowners during bank runs failures similar to 1929?
This could very well turn into a 1929 style event, maybe even worse, where it's hyper stagflation, not a Great Depression, but a hyper stagflation, which is in essence the Great Depression meets the printing press. So, will they allow for some sort of debt forgiveness or forbearance? Probably. I wouldn't try and think that you're getting out of your payment just because everything else collapses. There'll be someone to pick up the pieces and knock on your door and say, by the way, you do owe us some money. And of all of the $35 trillion debt, roughly 20%, roughly 7 trillion is owed to the rest of the world. So if you are going to precipitate a reset and a default, it's a whole hell of a lot easier to do it when literally the majority of all of the debt is here. Where I could see it happening is in US Treasury debt, where we default on the world, we start over, we file bankruptcy, but as a way of appeasing the public. You see, I always think to myself, how the hell are you going to roll out a CBDC when everyone who watches this show says, I ain't taking that damn thing. I ain't taking it. Not a chance I'm letting them know everything I do. Really? Well, what if you lose everything? Then what are you going to do? You're going to feed your family or you're going to starve?
Should we be concerned about confiscation of non sovereign coins in the time of reset?
I mean, desperate governments do desperate things. I mean, just because Jim Sinclair told me that sovereign coins made in the US would be immune doesn't mean they are or will be, doesn't mean it will happen. Um, I think that you hope for the best, you prepare for the worst, you prepare best you can for the worst, and hope it doesn't happen. That'll be the largest stockpile of silver in the world held by JP Morgan and BlackRock, JP Morgan and HSBC behind GLD. They can come in and take those two funds amongst all the other ETFs held and administered by the crooks that manipulate the market, say to the world, we didn't do anything, we didn't confiscate anything. No, 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 no. You can still own physical metal. We just closed these ETFs. So it would be a lot easier than going door to door and risking that backlash globally and domestically. Here they can have their cake and eat it too and not be an authoritarian regime. All the financial advisors out there, lots of them, would tell their clients to buy GLD and SLV rather than give $1 million to a company like mine because it ain't coming back, and they make their money by keeping it under management. So you have all of the help from Wall Street pushing money into these funds that could then be easily, cleanly taken.
Here's the question: at what point does HSBC, Bank of America, JP Morgan, whoever else is already doing the shorting, stop shorting silver?
I think it's getting to that point very quickly. You're seeing massive drawdowns from the exchanges, massive accumulation by countries like India and China. China is the second largest producer of silver in the world, and yet they're going all around the world buying unrefined silver and paying double what the West will to achieve it. See, the difference between the BRICS and all of us is that we think in terms of days and weeks and minutes and hours. They think in terms of decades. They don't want the West to know that they're de-dollarizing, that they're buying gold, because it is the antithesis to the system. The West does not have a solution to gold and silver. Ted Butler, God rest his soul, before he died, said they have a 1 billion ounce short position that they still supposedly have in silver, naked, 1 billion ounces, and 40 plus million ounces short in gold. They're bleeding massive amounts. They must be. The game has changed. The rules haven't. It's just that the players now are taking advantage of those rules. They're going to win the game by beating us within our own rules. And the media is so stupid in this country. It should be all over where are the investigative journalists that are not breaking this story? They want to extract as much as they can, get as far down the road as they can before they get the wrath of the West. But if all of these countries are coordinated enough and sophisticated enough and are together finding safety in numbers, by the time that wrath comes, it may be too late, and that wrath will be pale in comparison to the ability of these countries who already have a larger portion of human population, a larger military might, 3 of the 4 largest nuclear arsenals. You don't want to fuck with these countries when they're all coordinated together, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree. So I got a lot. Thank you for that, Andy. I've got one last question, around this concept of trading or selling to you and buying back. And, do you guys do that kind of business?
Sure. I think the swap is a great trade. The swap, if it works out, is the best trade because it allows you to benefit yourself, reposition yourself. It's kind of like what the central banks are doing. The central banks are doing the same thing. They're swapping dollars and treasuries for gold. I don't know that it makes the most sense at this point because I think numismatics are still undervalued, but the actual logic behind it makes sense because you go back and look over the last 50 plus years. I mean, platinum was much higher than gold most of my career. In 2008, I'm using my memory, I would be off a little bit, but if I remember right, gold was not even 800 and platinum was over 2000, if I'm not mistaken. It's 10, 20 times more rare than gold. The majority of the supply is found in South Africa, BRICS, and Russia, BRICS. I get it. But when I think of Mr. Blue, when I think of platinum, to me, I own some, but it represents probably 3, 4, 5% of my entire metals holding. So I think the real place to be is gold. But with that being said, I understand your argument. I understand your logic and your thinking. And yes, we would do it for you and guarantee you the highest bid price in the country.
Andy, last thing I just wanted to do is you kind of mentioned it. So to get a hold of Andy is info@milesfranklin.com. Let him know Stacking Surfer sent you. And that way you guys can get the best pricing. He has pricing on his website, but things change so drastically all the time.
It's not even that. It's just our price list is way better than those prices. And we do that purposely for a lot of reasons. But call us, send us an email, and we will make sure you get really, really good prices, as good or better than just about anyone in the country. It's best to put your phone number down. We will not call you unless we have to, but we can text you as well, because sometimes coming from a company like ours, people's spam filters, especially if it's their business email, will block it and they won't think we responded, but we always do. So yeah, info@Miles Franklin, Stacking Surfer send. You just want the inventory list, ask for it. You want to talk about swapping, IRAs, anything, or any questions that you have, let us know. We'll get back to you.